He beat her. You can't handle the truth. You can't. Possibility that Cassie Ventura went through things like this horrific, horrible things that this man. You saw me. We can agree the videos were horrible, right? Is it possible that she did things that she wouldn't know to because she was so in love with this man? The answer is yes or no.
Yes. That's what I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, we all have cell phones. 911. Amen.
Sean Combs is an integral part of the hip-hop culture, and so I wasn't ready to throw daggers in his back.
Did you know he was convicted in 2009 of felony assault of his then girlfriend Rihanna?
Yes.
Did you know he has a restraining order against him by another ex-girlfriend for threats? Did you know he has been accused of rapes and further assaults?
Yes, but I've heard that they've banished it.
And did you know that he is currently on conditional bail for an alleged bottle attack in London 2 years ago?
I did hear about that, but I think the guy, I read it today, he has actually withdrawn his charges.
And so how does it all make you feel, you know?
I enjoy his music. I think he's an amazing dancer, and what he's done, I think he's paid enough for his problems or whatever. And I just go because I like his concert music, dancing.
Hello, and welcome back to Not All Men, the podcast where we dig beneath the headlines and into the actual patterns that shape how we view masculinity, power, and justice. This podcast for me really kind of exemplifies a lot of the things that I've been feeling, in particular with sort of like the shift in culture when it comes to how we deal with masculinity, how we deal with men. Like I said in the initial podcast, this podcast is not about bashing men. It's not about talking down to men. This podcast is about recognizing some of those patterns that happen in media or true crime that talk about the problems of masculinity and power and how it affects us all. I'm your host, and today's episode is personal. It's not just about celebrity scandal. It's about legacy, silence, survival, and the emotional tug of war happening in the Black community, and in particular with men in the Black community. Now, I first wanted to start off with why exactly I wanted to talk about this. I grew up an R&B and hip hop fan thanks to my parents who had it on all the time when they were in the car taking me to school or when they would have their Sunday cleaning, they would throw on that playlist. My mom was more R&B and my dad was more hip hop. They would have on people like Boys to Men, Usher, especially Usher, Tony Braxton, and Aaliyah. And they would even have on people like R. Kelly or I was going to say P. Diddy as well, but I feel like a lot of his music, like he was more known as like that guy who would be like, in the background, you know? Like you didn't really listen to P. Diddy as an artist. You listened to the artists that P. Diddy associated himself with, if that makes any sense. They were in the culture. And my older sister, she was a really big fan of Chris Brown growing up. Hate to bust you out there, Shay. But she was a real big fan of Chris Brown, and she would even jokingly say that that's her husband. I remember when Run It came out, she, when the song would come on, she would do the Running Man in my bedroom. Yeah, she was actually a pretty big fan. Not so much anymore, but she was then. And television, as you may not know, I actually studied television. I have a media studies master's degree, so I know all about television. And growing up, we watched all of the Black sitcoms. We watched The Parkers, which is my favorite, Living Single, which is better than Friends, Good Times. My parents actually had a box set of Good Times DVDs that had like the entire series on like multiple DVDs. And I would sit in my bedroom and watch episode after episode after episode of Good Times, which is pretty crazy to think about it now. And of course, because I was definitely that kid who was watching Nick at Night because I couldn't fall asleep, I was watching The Cosby Show as well. They weren't just shows, they were cultural comfort food for me. They felt like a safe space for me to be able to see myself. These shows made you feel seen, whether they're talking in our lingo or whether they are talking about issues or whether they're just celebrating Blackness. They felt like they were comfort food. There were rare moments that we saw ourselves on screen. But now, when I look back at some of those names in TV shows that I just listed, Bill Cosby, Diddy, Chris Brown, R. Kelly, it feels different. Those childhood memories, they're still there, but overall, the feeling towards these people is different, at least for me, because now we know things that we didn't know back then. We've heard from survivors, we've seen the court documents, the settlements, and we're starting to notice the patterns. But here's the part that sticks with me. Their image may have changed, but our relationship to them, or at least our relationship to how we talk about them, for some reason, for a lot of the Black community, hasn't changed. Why is it that R. Kelly was still having sold out shows before he went to jail? Why was R. Kelly still selling out shows after Surviving R. Kelly came out? Chris Brown? Still taking spicy meet and greet photos with his fans, many of them Black and brown women. People were standing outside of the courthouse of P. Diddy, dousing themselves in oil, wearing free P. Diddy shirts. And even now, I hear from some people that about Bill Cosby, that he's like an icon, like a comedy icon, especially for the Black community and Black comedians. There's this feeling of distrust of the people who came forward, even to this day. So that's kind of what this video is going to be about. We needed to talk about why, as a Black community, we have such a hard time letting go of these talented but seemingly awful men. Why is it so hard for us as a community to let go of talented men who do harm? Why do we defend them? What does it cost us when we stay loyal? And when we say cancel culture, what are we actually afraid of? So let's move on to segment number one, which is the patterns we ignore. I'm pretty sure it's been talked about ad nauseum about what these men have done. But just in case you want a little reminder, let's start with the basics. Because none of these men that I just mentioned are accused of isolated, one time offenses. What connects Bill Cosby, Sean Combs, AKA P. Diddy or whatever, Chris Brown, R. Kelly, isn't just the fact that they're famous and talented. It's a consistent pattern of allegations and abuse over the course of years by multiple different people who all have very similar stories. For Bill Cosby was once America's dad, but dozens of women, and I mean dozens, have accused him of drugging and assaulting them. These women span different decades, different backgrounds, and yet all of their stories sound very similar. Sean Combs, also known as Puff Daddy, Brother Love, whatever you want to call him, has a growing list of accusations that have been coming out in the last 2 years, from domestic violence to sexual assault to sex trafficking. And it's not just Cassie that has all of these allegations or proven true allegations. There are former employees, other women he's dated, lawsuits, video footage, FBI raids. This isn't just with P. Diddy, it's not just that he said, she said. It's he said, and a whole lot of other people said something else. And with Chris Brown, everyone knows of Rihanna and what happened. And I think that a lot of people think that people are still not liking him because of that incident. But I think that he has shown over the years, when I tried to get down all of the things he's been accused of, it was a long list of arrests, a long list of rumors and accusations of the things that he's done. Like he had a restraint. I remember Karuchi Tran had a restraining order against him. She said that he had physically assaulted her, stalked her, and threatened her. There were even rumors that he kicked her down a flight of stairs. And still, he continues to tour, collaborate with major artists. I wish the chokehold he had on some of our new R&B women would just like disappear. Every time one of them collaborates with them, there's this huge backlash, but it seems like they never really learn their lesson. They continue to give him praise. It's so odd. And he still maintains a pretty loyal fan base. Just this year, he was actually arrested after he put on his Instagram story, hashtag free Tory. Well, it needed to be hashtag free him because he was arrested kind of like, I think, the next day. We've also got R. Kelly, which his list of offenses is pretty endless. He married an underage Aaliyah, held a woman captive. Do I have to say allegedly if he's sitting in jail? Held a woman captive, isolated these women from their families. Some even report that, they would take that they hadn't seen their daughters in months because they were with R. Kelly, or they hadn't seen their, like, not even a glimpse besides on social media of their daughters in months, which is awful. He created a system of control that kind of like mirrored a cult or cult like behavior. He was eventually convicted on federal charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, but only after years and decades of people sounding the alarm. I remember when I was a kid, people making jokes about R. Kelly and that whole incident where he peed on the underage girl. I remember thinking back then that that's freaking weird that people use that as a punchline, or people know about this and still want to associate themselves with him. I've always thought that was weird, even when I was a kid. And luckily now he's sitting in jail. Now, again, what do these stories have in common? Survivors, repeated harm, abuse of power, and a refusal to take accountability. They didn't just make a mistake. They made choices over and over. And our community kept finding reasons to look away. And that is our problem. And that brings me to segment 2, why we protect them. Or at least in my opinion, I think why we protect them. If we're being honest with ourselves, the protection of these men doesn't just come out of nowhere. As Black people living in the United States, our relationship to the justice system is fraught. It's violent and it's generational. We've seen innocent Black men wrongly convicted and sentenced to death for wrongly convicted and sentenced to death. We've watched video after video, Black boys and men being murdered by the police with no consequences coming from those who've killed them. The system was never built to protect us. It was built to control us and protect other people from us, even if we're not the problem. We've also seen how easily society can strip Black men of everything with just one accusation, true or false. And because of that, we have developed a knee jerk defense mechanism, protect our young Black men and boys, especially when it's against our white counterparts, because no one will do that protection as good as we can. That instinct is not entirely wrong. And I'm not here to say that it is wrong. It comes from pain, from experience, from watching Emmett Till die over a lie that took that woman decades to actually say that she was lying, from watching the Central Park Five be vilified and imprisoned and even vilified by the very man we have in office today. We have had to protect ourselves because nobody else would. But that protective instinct can become toxic when it blinds us from the actual harm that's being done within our community, or people who are within our community who are causing harm. Because what happens when the predator is one of us? What happens when it is true? We start making excuses. They're just trying to take a successful Black man down, or she's lying to get money, or there's no way he could have done that. Look at everything that he's done for Black culture, things like that. And to that, I say, yes, the justice system is racist. Yes, false accusations do occur, but patterns don't lie. When dozens of people over decades say the same thing without them knowing each other or getting their stories together, it's not a conspiracy. It's not an attack on the Black experience. It's not an attack on the Black excellence. It's a call to stop prioritizing power over people. These men, they are far away from a person like Emmett Till. They're far away from the Central Park Five. These men have money, they have access, they have power, they have the ability to get even people, even when they see hard evidence, to still say that it was the victim's fault. They have that ability that people like Emmett Till never got. This is a different time. These are not the same. The only thing that they share with Emmett Till is that they were Black boys once, but they're not Black boys anymore. And they've continued to bring harm to many, many people. But we still want to look at them as though they are playing in that same field or playing in that same injustice when they're not. And that brings me to segment victim blaming in our own community, or my alternative title, victim blaming in our own homes. Now, again, I think that Just like we need to have a conversation about the very racist justice system, we also need to have a conversation about Black women and how we are treated. Because most of the survivors in these cases, or I guess if you put them all together, a lot of them are Black women. And yet, we are the ones who are least likely to be believed, least likely to be protected, and least likely to be seen. We get called bitter, loud, jealous, gold diggers, we're acting too fast. We get told we should have known better, or those girls knew what they were doing. They wanted it. Um, he's got money, she knew exactly what she was doing. She just wanted to get paid off, things like that. There's a long history of this, of hypersexualizing young Black girls, from a very young age. This idea that because we are because we are young Black girls, that we have, for some reason, a mind of an adult because our bodies curve out at a very young age, that we have the mindset of knowing what we're doing because our bodies may look like adults, our bodies may look like grown women, that our minds are there as well, or assuming we are grown when we're still kids, especially mentally, of blaming us for our own abuse. And that conditioning doesn't just stop when we become adults. We still get dismissed, even when we bring receipts, even when there are multiple victims, even when there's a video. There are people who will see that video of Cassie and still say that if she was being harmed, she should have told the police or she should have called 911. It's still her fault, even though she did nothing wrong. And what's worse is abusers know this. They know their fans will defend them. They know they can still have concerts and people will come to them. They know the media will be split on it, or try to present a both sides argument. They know Black women's pain isn't taken seriously. And that gives them permission to keep going. No one's holding them accountable. They're not actually facing real consequences. Out of the list of men, like, sure, you could say that, they've been held accountable legally, but as a community, we're still not, even when the evidence is right there, or there's been rumors for decades and years, like, we're still not doing anything about it. The moment a Black woman says she's hurt by a powerful man, she's labeled bitter, money hungry, and a liar. Meanwhile, he keeps getting awards, radio play, new brand deals. Why do we protect him before we hear her? And that brings me on to my next segment, which is cancel culture versus accountability. Now, I've said this many times and I still believe this. Cancel culture does not exist. Chris Brown is not canceled. Diddy is not canceled. Cosby was in jail for what felt like a second, and he was let out. And he's still rich. R. Kelly, he's in prison now. But let's not forget how long it took and how some of these rumors about him were even mainstream, and no one did anything about it. These men are not being erased from history. They're being challenged, and that's not the same as being silenced. Accountability isn't cruelty, it's necessary. It's how we protect future victims and how we protect survivors as well. It's how we send a message to our community, especially our kids who are very impressionable, that harm has consequences, even when you're famous and rich and powerful, which it's hard to take that in when you see a bunch of rich, powerful men who are still able to go on to cause harm. It starts within our own community, correcting that behavior and making it clear that this behavior within our community will not be this behavior within our own community will not be justified. So no, we do not need to cancel Black men. There are tons of amazing Black men out there who are fighting the fight every single day, fighting the fight for Black women, with Black women. We need to stop protecting the harmful ones when they've proven that they are a danger to us. Because when someone shows you who they are, you probably should believe them. We can love our culture, our amazing Black culture. We can still play that music from high school that takes us back to a certain time, but we have to stop pretending that talent can cancel out real trauma. We can hold space for the pain of our people and also hold the people who need to be accountable accountable. We can hold space for the pain that our people has been through but then also still believe survivors. But the real betrayal is not calling someone out, it's staying silent while they keep doing damage and continuing to uplift them and give them money and give them time and attention. I'm not asking them to lose everything, but I'm asking, with those some of those women who go to the Chris Brown concert, when you're standing outside and taking pictures with him and people call you out on it, don't get so defensive. This is what you're choosing to do. You are actively choosing to support him and you stand on it then. But don't try to act like, oh, that happened such a long time ago. Or, oh, I just listened to his music, but like, I don't support the things that he does. No, 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 you do. You do. You're there at the concert. You do. You do. You do support it. Stand on it then. If that's how you want to be seen, stand on it then. Thanks for listening to this episode of Not All Men, and thank you for watching this episode of Not All Men. If this episode challenged you or moved you, share it, start the conversation with others, talk to your people, your community, and always remember accountability is care, and the culture we defend is the culture we become. Also, as I am a book nerd, if you want to maybe do some readings or some further education on this topic, I have 3 book recommendations that you should definitely check out. Books like Eloquent Rage by Brittany Cooper, Hood Feminism, and one of the books that I love and think it's just written with so much truth and beauty, but also just it was a pretty devastating book to read, but a one that I think everyone should read. It's life changing. Know My Name by Chanel Miller, um, who is from her book, you can get a survivor's perspective. For me, with this particular topic, I felt inspired to discuss it because seeing those people outside the courthouse with Diddy celebrating and pouring baby oil all over themselves. It really hurt me deeply because someone else's trauma, just because this person is famous and like some of these people had never even met Diddy or know, like, have never been to one of those parties or they just didn't know him and they just defended him for what? For a little bit of camera time on the news. It made me upset and I wanted to put my feelings somewhere. Also, before I go, I have a Substack called Not All Men Pod. On there, you can find resources. I have a running list of resources for mental health, for just a running list of important resources. I also have on there a written version of this podcast. I also have book recommendations, stuff that all surrounds the very things that I'm talking about. So you can also find me on Substack, and that'll be in the description. Stay curious, stay safe, and take care of yourself. Bye.